Hello, so this is going to be a video on a Polish PM63 RAK, which is an interesting machine pistol SMG sort of hybrid, PDW sort of thing. There's a good forgotten weapons video on this, obviously if you want all the history on the gun to see some shooting of it, watch that. As I'm in the UK, this is a deactivated one, but these are one of the deactivated guns at the moment that are relatively cheap because a big batch of them must have come in being deactivated. And they're really cool, kind of weird designs. Lots of people hate this gun, lots of people really like it. I think it's probably something that's fairly mediocre, but the design is actually really interesting. So what I'll do in this video is show this and then show it compared to like what we'd consider a proper SMG. You know, submachine guns, so you can see the difference. Now, what this is it basically first looks like an oversized pistol. If you took that bit off, it would look exactly like an oversized pistol. And it works exactly like an oversized machine pistol, sort of, except for it's got a folding sort of foregrip on it, and it's also got a sort of retractable stock on it. Now, both of these things aren't brilliant, although I've actually found the foregrip is much better than a lot of people have said. But again, that might be like a quality control issue, because the stock on mine's a bit crap. I know a lot of people don't rate it much either, but mine seems particularly a bit fiddly when you're trying to take it, you know, out and in. So what this essentially is, and the barrel only comes to there on this, and obviously, as I said, this is deactivated, and obviously that means that I can wave it around, do what I want with it, as long as I'm inside my house, I'm not breaking any rules. So there's the magazine. I think this is a 15 round mag on this one. I think it was either 15 or 25 round mag, so I assume the 25 round mag would be the one that would be sort of sticking slightly out from the bottom of the gun. So essentially how this works is it has a blowback system like a regular pistol, you know, essentially shoots doing that, and it's a machine pistol, so automatic, but it's a bit bulky in a regular machine pistol, because some machine pistols essentially just look like a pistol that happens to be automatic. So what this basically does, to make it more of a PDW sort of SMG, is there's a button you can press on this side here, and that releases the foregrip. So you release that, and then that foregrip is released out like that. So at this point you've actually got a foregrip on it. So you could actually probably rather conveniently, well, it wouldn't be accurate, you know, but it's a PDW, it's designed for close range. But the idea is, compared to a regular pistol, you could pretty accurately sort of hold it like that and shoot it, or sort of hip fire it and shoot it. Although you can't have it like that, because what you'll find is, because of how the you know, slide works on this, it actually makes it quite inconvenient to hold in certain positions. So what you also have on here is the retractable stock. So you basically pull this with force, this bit comes out, that locks there, and then you have this little butt plate that flips out. And now it's suddenly in its sort of SMG configuration. Now, what is a bit worrying for a lot of people with this gun is that when you're obviously shooting it, I can do it just a bit, that will keep flying towards your face, which I guess is a bit unnerving. But I guess as long as you're holding it properly, sort of, you know, doing that with it, you're not going to get the slide hit you in the face. There was also lots of rumours that people had their fingers shot off by this, but I don't think there's any truth in that, because unless you're holding it like that, you're not going to get your fingers, you know, shot off. Because if you've got that hand there, it's nowhere near the actual bit where, you know, the muzzle is. Because even when that retracts, you know, you'd still have to move your hand up quite far. It's far less risky than actually holding a crossbow, whereas with some of the grips you can put your fingers up quite easily and then lose them. So how it works on the fire selector is you basically just have, so I'll turn this around so you can see it. On this side you have basically the fire selector. So here you've got the safety, so that's off, and there's the safety on, and the safety on just locks the slide basically. So you can actually use that as well when you're disassembling the gun. So for example, what you do there is you'd move the gun to, it's quite hard to see at this angle, you'd move it to about here, there we go, you'd put it on the safe, and then if this wasn't deactivated I could do this now, but you just twist that bit, you can unscrew a bit of the barrel, and then the gun comes apart. But you can't do that with this because they welded a bit in place to stop you doing it. Other than that, they've basically taken the firing pin out, and they've also welded the barrel shut at that end, so, you know, it's an unusable barrel you can't take out, and they've also deactivated it by taking the firing pin out. But this does sort of semi-chamber around, as in you can put a magazine of a round in it, like say an inert round, rack the slide back, it will pull it in, try and seat it, obviously won't be able to seat it because there's the welded shut barrel, and then what will happen is the next time you pull the slide back it will eject it as though there was a failure. So that's quite cool. So as I said, it's obviously the problem is with this thing is if you're using it as a submachine gun, it's impractical, because although it would work as a submachine gun, it's obviously nowhere near as good as a purpose-built submachine gun. Mostly because this is really lightweight, which makes it really good to carry around, but when you've got full auto, you know, trying to control the recoil, that's not great. But again, it's better than a regular machine pistol for controllability, because you've at least got a stock and a foregrip on it. It's not just you try and hold, you know, a regular pistol like that while stopping it climbing. So here's the interesting thing with it. So this is lightweight, and it's relatively cool. But before I forget, the fire selector, in terms of semi and full, the trigger's disconnected on this one, but what would happen is you pull the trigger back slightly for semi, pull it back all the way for full, and that's how it basically controls the fire rate. Some submachine guns do that as well. To put the stock back in, just to show you quickly, you have to wiggle this bit around a bit, and again, this is one of the reasons I kind of don't like this gun, is there's a lot of stuff with this where, because bits are fiddly, you have to turn it around, and if you've got a live firearm, that's not a nice thing to do. You'd have to probably take the mag out and clear it every time you want to, like, close the stock or something. So basically, there's a button under here, I don't know where you can see it, but you press the button in there, that's what locks the stock in and out. So you press it in, and then it slides back like that. Before you slide it all the way in, you flip this bit back underneath, and then, when it actually wants to go into position, let me close the slide first so that's not in the way. I've still got the safety on, yeah, there we go. So with the slide closed, you basically get this butt plate bit, and you just ram it underneath. The more I do it, the easier it gets, but it's still not a great, you know, folding stocks. There's some folding stocks which literally, you know, you press a button to unhinge it and then rehinge it, and it's a much simpler process, like the same button. But there you go. So what I want to show you now is, if we have it folded up, how big is it compared to like a typical sort of Cold War submachine gun? And as you can see, that's a damn lot smaller, this, than like an actual submachine gun, especially with the thing deployed. But however, this is also heavier, which means it's easier to control, you know, the recoil on it. Now, once you unfold it, they're literally the same length. This is the funny thing. So, and again, this is a much better design of folding stock, because on this one it acts as a nice foregrip when it's there like that. Well, not really a foregrip, but you know, I suppose you could do it like that, couldn't you? Have it as a foregrip of sorts, but you know, it's more of just sort of an underhanded grip. But anyway, you know, you fold it out so it goes past the magazine, then it swings out and it locks in place, and then you've got a much easier to hold and sort of use submachine gun. Now if we get this again, and again we don't actually have to deploy the front handle on it again, but if we just do that for the rear stock, what you'll be able to see is that the length of these is actually very, very similar once they're deployed. Again, this is a bit still shorter than this SMG, but you know, if you put the receivers right next to each other again, it's shorter. But in general, it's not much shorter of a stock deployed than a typical submachine gun. But weight-wise, it's still a lot lighter weight, so nicer to carry around, not as good when you're trying to shoot it. Now, there's one main thing that stops this being nice to shoot for a lot of people, and that's because the slide comes back and forth when you're shooting it, and this is ignoring, you know, maybe getting hit in the face with it. The sights are on the slide, so every time you shoot it, that sight is actually moving. Now, I know that's the case on a lot of pistols, but it's kind of a bit different with a pistol, where you're probably holding it like that, you know, and doing it that, when this you've got your eye much closer to it, and the sight is actually doing that, so it's very inaccurate, basically. But it is a cool design. It looks to me a bit like the MP7 before the MP7 was actually a thing. You know, it's that same sort of SMG design, like the little folding sort of, you know, handguard. I know some of the SMG MP7s now have just like a fixed, you know, grip on a rail, but still, it does remind me a lot of the MP7 actually. Especially when you've got, let me just close that up, see if I can do this operation a bit easier now. Yeah, there we go. Especially when you've got it like that, it does remind me a lot of the MP7 like that, especially if you think Half-Life 2 Metro Cop, sort of how the MP7 looks in that, yeah. Now, the cool thing with this, there is one other thing. So this bit is both designed to stop you putting your hand up in front of there and shooting yourself in the finger, but it's also designed so when you get a solid surface, you can just do this and cock the gun like that, which is actually really cool. Again, like Forgotten Weapons mentions in this video, you could cock it on yourself by doing that. Actually, that's pressing quite hard. Like, you could do it in your leg, for example. But you don't want to do that, because obviously if it shoots, it then puts a hole in you. So yeah, interestingly, there's a number of export versions of these, which I didn't actually know about until I looked them up. So even China still uses these today as like the Type 80 or something. But that's quite cool. And again, several nations have used it, not many. Mostly because it's probably a bit of a hard design to sell, because, you know, maybe people be like, well, we'd rather just have a submachine gun, like a purpose-built submachine gun. And I think they'd be right, you know, especially a good purpose-built submachine gun. And in terms of like PDW type designs, I'd much rather have something like an actual MP7 or P90 than something like this. But this is still really cool. It's very sci-fi looking, I think, for when it came out. I'm pretty sure there's one of these in the Delta Force, like one of the hijackers has it on the plane. Like, you know, the old Chuck Norris one. But yeah, there you go. So like I said, it's cool. It's basically an oversized pistol, or a very small submachine gun, either way you look at it. But it's a cool, weird design. Oh, and this was in the first Call of Duty Black Ops, which I only actually remembered the other day when somebody mentioned it in a video comment, and I reinstalled it. I was like, oh yeah, that is in there. I can't remember if it was a good or bad SMG in the game, but I'm sort of saying this was actually famous kind of thanks to that. Because that was a much more obscure gun to be in Call of Duty than some of the others. This gets compared a lot to the Czech Scorpion, because or the Czechoslovakian Scorpion, because they were designed to fit the same roles, and most people basically agree the Scorpion is a much more superior gun than this, you know, the same sort of purposes they were built for. But I do like this thing because it's unique and weird. So there you go. As I said, it's an interesting, weird thing. Because I'm in YouTube's new policies, I can't tell you where I bought this from, even though it's a deactivated gun, not a live firearm. So I can't link you to the site, but basically it's one of the main deactivated gun sites in the UK that has it. Several might have it actually, if it's that widely available. But yeah, like I said, it's a pretty cool thing, because it's either an oversized pistol, if you look at it like that way, an automatic pistol, or it's, you know, like a weird little sort of inconvenient submachine gun. But either way, it's a cool, neat little thing, you know, and I actually think the design is really interesting to it, but I can see why, practicality-wise, everybody was like, isn't it best probably just to issue Kalashnikovs, you know, like with folding stocks for vehicle crews or whatever, rather than this thing? And they'd probably be right, but still, this is a cool design. So apparently, just before I forget, it's mentioned in the Forgotten Weapons video, but the PM63 RAK, the name, the RAK bit means, I think, cancer, which means either crab, you know, like crustacean, or cancer. And apparently the bloke who was designing it was dying of cancer at the time, so it's like a weird coincidence, but apparently it's probably more likely it was just meant, like, it's called the crab, like this gun, you know, so it's like little nickname. But yeah, that, like I said, it's a cool thing. Practicality-wise, I don't know how practical it would be, but it's still cool and weird.